Hello everyone, Ryan here. An appeal to the world by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The way to peace in a time of division. Recently read this and I enjoyed it. I mean, it's an easy read. Actually, it's more of an interview, like a long interview with the Dalai Lama. And the interview is conducted by Franz Alt, PhD. He's a journalist, also a best-selling author. Although, I gotta admit, I've never heard of him before. But so he's the one that interviewed the Dalai Lama for this. And then I guess they just... I don't know exactly who compiled the interview into a book. I'm assuming it's the same journalist guy, Franz Alt. So, yeah. Now, in this, I like that, of course, I guess I should say, in the past, I studied Buddhism somewhat. I mean, there was even a time when I considered myself a Buddhist, or at least somewhat of a Buddhist. And I mean, because I never, I didn't like become all hardcore. Like I didn't, I mean, pretty much when it comes to religion in general, I've never been a devout anything. So, yeah, but I mean, that's not to say, I do believe everybody has a right. I mean, obviously, I've always believed that everyone has a right to believe whatever they want to believe, or don't believe whatever they, choose not to believe, or, and so for me, it was just, there was this point in my life when, I wanted to reconnect in some way to humanity, but also the environment around me, anything and everything to do with the earth. And so, I read up on a couple other religions before, obviously Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, even Hinduism. And then after that, that's when I came upon Buddhism. And for me, I mean, I like the fact that with Buddhism, it's not, it's not about worship. I mean, at least in most of the books and texts that I've read, I've never come across anything that states that Buddhism is about worshiping some kind of deity or person or ideal, or I mean, that's what I've always felt. That for me it rang true, because I've never felt like I should have to worship anyone or anything or any concept or any ideal, but anyways, I don't want to get off on a tangent. I guess I'll have to do some kind of separate video in which I get a little more in depth with that. I mean, one other book I would say, if you want to learn a little more about Buddhism, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. That is an awesome book. I know I've mentioned it several times before, but I read and reviewed that. If you want to check out my review of that, I'll provide that link. But yeah, it's just, as a fiction, it's a fictional novel, but it's a good, I feel like, primer, kind of almost introductory kind of thing into Buddhism. So, but I mean, you don't really have to know anything about Buddhism before reading this book, because in this, the Dalai Lama, he makes some references to Buddhism, but it's nothing in depth. And I like that. I mean, because like for the most part, it seems to me like in this book, but also in other books and other interviews, he's always made sure to just keep his answers as straightforward and, I guess, succinct as possible. In other words, you know, he talks about a lot of stuff having to do with things like politics, war, poverty, greed, the different things that have been going on in China and Tibet, or between China and Tibet. The Dalai Lama, he's been a refugee for, I don't know how long, I think pretty much almost his entire life, and which is quite a long time, because he's been the Dalai Lama since he was like 4 years old. And, you know, because they had this tradition of, you know, they believe in, as far as like Tibetan Buddhism is concerned, they primarily believe in reincarnation, which I would say I also kind of do, but I don't want to get into too much detail on that. It's, like I said, well, I mean, there's a lot of things to cover in Buddhism, but anytime the Dalai Lama does any kind of interview with someone, he just, you know, he answers as best he can, and in a way, you know, to make sure that people just understand his answers. And not only that, he has a pretty good sense of humor. I mean, he's always laughing. Supposedly there's even a mention in this book about how one time he was interviewed by some other reporter, and he kept laughing after every question he was asked, or like, I don't know, like the reporter would ask him a question and he would answer and then laugh or like giggle a little bit. And the reporter said that, you know, they had to re-record the interview because they couldn't edit out all of his laughter. And but then, you know, the Dalai Lama is also good at explaining why he likes to laugh a lot, because he says that, you know, anytime he's reminded of, or anytime he thinks about all the different things that mankind tends to get himself into, like the different things that humanity does to each other, you know, all these different things, that includes the good and the bad, you know, he can't help but laugh about it. I mean, laugh it off, laugh it all away, and, you know, which, you know, I definitely agree with him on that point. It's yeah, you know, I mean, come on, as human beings, we're so complex, and, you know, it's, how can you not laugh? How can you not laugh? I mean, that's how I feel. So obviously I know not everyone feels the same way, but so anyways, you know, as far as like, you know, I don't want to give away too much about what the Dalai Lama talks about in this book, but I will say one thing that stood out the most to me, I like that he talked about how he believes that religion can only take people so far, and because it gets, in other words, it gets to a certain point in which people become like fanatical about their beliefs. You know, I mean, one example, you know, people who die, you know, who die for their beliefs, and, you know, it's, I mean, we hear about that all the time, and it's been going on for thousands of years, so possibly even longer than thousands of years. It's, but yeah, and he mentions that he believes, since we're now in the 21st century, he believes that we need to consider coming up with a set of some kind of secular ethics to follow. In other words, some kind of, I guess, guidelines of some kind in which to, in order that people, that all people can adhere to, and not necessarily laws, not like, if you steal something, you go to jail, pay a fine or whatever, or if you drive over the speed limit, get a ticket, pay a fine, or, whatever. It's, what he means by ethics is more like, just something like some kind of non-religious, I guess, code of conduct, or, yeah. I mean, of course, he doesn't really go into too, great detail in this, because again, like I said, he tries to keep his answers as simple as possible. But he constantly refers to it as secular ethics, Also, he kind of mentions the fact that, that for the most part, most human beings, we all know the differences between right and wrong, or right action and wrong action. We all know that. We know that even before, becoming a part of any kind of religion or faith or, anything else. Which is something that I've always believed too. I believe that human beings, we are capable of discerning between right action and wrong action. I mean, I think, if you can walk and talk, and read and write, or I don't know, or if you can chew gum and walk, I say, yeah, then you can discern between right and wrong. That's what I say. I mean, of course, that's not including any individual that might suffer from some kind of mental disorder. So, but yeah, otherwise, for the rest of us, I mean, come on. We know that, we know we're not supposed to talk bad about someone. We know that we're not supposed to make fun of someone for how they look or how they talk or act. We know that. We know that falls under wrong action. As far as right action, yeah, I mean, come on, we know, if we can help someone, if we can help an elderly person cross the street, we know that's a right action. That's right. If you happen to have some spare change that you can give to a homeless person, yeah, that's a right action. And of course, I'm not going to get into semantics because I can already hear some people out there saying, oh, no, you're not supposed to help anybody. Because the second you help anybody, they don't do crap for you and this and that. But that's something else entirely, I believe. And also something that the Dalai Lama talks about in this book too, in that if you're only helping someone in order to receive something in return, then you're not truly helping them. You're just helping yourself. And, that ultimately that too falls under wrong action. So, in other words, yeah, it's, don't help someone expecting something in return. Or rather, especially if it's like somebody in dire need, obviously I know, and it's different, if you make a deal with, say, your friend, if you tell a friend of yours that, yeah, I'll help you move your furniture if you help me fix my car or something. And then if both parties agree to that, then yeah, that's fine. But I'm saying, for some people who try to say, I'm not going to help a homeless person because, they're not going to help me, so why should I help them? Or they say something like, well, they're just lazy bums and they don't do anything for this country. Why should I help them? Or I mean, I assume you know what I'm trying to get at too, and that's essentially what the Dalai Lama explains a little bit in this book too. So, yeah. And ultimately, you know, I also like that he mentions that the fact that as human beings, we tend to focus on our differences too much. And not that we shouldn't embrace our differences, because he is all for that, for all of us embracing what makes each of us unique. But also, you know, he feels that too many times we end up alienating each other because of our differences, and that just ends up causing more division, more hatred, more prejudice. More finger pointing, blaming others for far too many things that really have nothing to do with them or you know what's going on in the country. You know, it's, to me, that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, as far as the rating goes, you know what, I gotta give this 5 stars. Not so much because of the way it's written. Well, kind of that. I mean, I like that it's short, but mostly because I like the message in it. You know, the message that the Dalai Lama tries to convey, which to me, it's an important message. You know, it's in fact, there's a quote on the back which I definitely like. The quote is, "We must learn now that humanity is all one big family." Yeah. That's it. That really summarizes what I happen to believe, what the Dalai Lama believes, and also what he feels all of mankind should believe. So, yeah, that'll do it for my review of this An Appeal to the World by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, The Way to Peace in a Time of Division. So, once again, I give it 5 stars. I do recommend everybody read this at least once. Again, it's not that hard to get through, so there you go. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. As always, next time, don't forget, keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.